This report includes graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised.
I want to reconnect you to a shocking video first aired in August 2009. Now, it apparently shows Sri Lankan troops carrying out brutal executions. And now, a United Nations investigator says it appears to be genuine. Now, this footage, which Sri Lanka says is fabricated, shows a man dressed as a soldier shooting a bound, blindfolded man in the head at point-blank range. Well, it was allegedly filmed in January 2009 during the final stages of what was the bloody conflict with Tamil rebels. UN Special Rapporteur Philip Alston says 3 independent forensic experts have confirmed that the footage is authentic, renewing calls for a war crimes inquiry. I want to speak to Philip Alston in a moment. First, though, I want to remind you of the horrors of the conflict in Sri Lanka. The government's 25-year war against Tamil Tiger rebels ended in May 2009, as you may remember. United Nations reports say more than 7,000 civilians were killed in the latter stages of the fighting as government forces closed in. Now, the US State Department has accused both sides of possible war crimes. Sri Lanka's government has rejected all calls for independent investigations of alleged war crimes and says the execution video that we showed you just a moment ago is a fake. Well, let's meet the UN investigator who is contesting that. Philip Alston joins me live from the United Nations in New York. And Philip, before we begin this, for transparency purposes, we have just heard from the Sri Lankan government in response to your suggestion that this is now true video. They say they consider, and I quote, that Professor Philip Alston, the UN Special Rapporteur, has acted violating all stipulated UN procedures, norms of justice and equity in issuing his public statement on the video footage of alleged executions of Tamils by Sri Lankan soldiers. It shows that he has shown an adamant haste in pursuing an agenda of his own with regard to this issue. Your response?
My response, I could happily address the substance of their claims, which get into the way in which United Nations Special Rapporteurs operate, their relationship with the Human Rights Council, etc. I would insist that I have operated entirely consistently with those norms, but what I would emphasize is that when major allegations of potential or apparent war crimes are brought, it's not a very happy situation when a government then, instead of addressing those allegations, instead of looking at the substance and the real problems, turns to questions of procedures within the UN, internal procedures. I think that is a very...
OK, all right, I get your point. The United Nations now calling, as far as I understand, for an independent war crimes investigation. Is that right?
Yes, I think this video footage is very striking, but it comes on top of a range of other allegations that have been made over the recent months. There are clearly enough allegations on the table to warrant investigation. The Sri Lankan government has systematically blocked all access to the war zone, to the many witnesses to these events, and I think the time has now come for the international community to really push strongly for an independent inquiry to ascertain exactly what happened in those last few months on both sides, not just violations allegedly committed by the government, but also by the Tamil Tigers.
What's the chance of an independent war crimes investigation at this point, do you think?
Well, I think the Sri Lankan government has indicated by its actions that it is sensitive to international criticism. It has insisted that it has never engaged in any of these violations. If that's the case, then it really should be welcoming an independent inquiry, because that would basically clear them of all blame. My hope is that the United Nations, the international community more generally, will be able to convince the Sri Lankan government that it's in the interests of everyone concerned to really move ahead with such an investigation.
With that, we're going to leave it there. Philip, we thank you very much.